Even if Al-Qaeda did this, our government is still guilty. Then you should remember that Al-Qaeda was supported and funded by the ISI, and the ISI was supported and funded by the CIA.
The day after the attacks, it was apparent that some people within the government were aware of the Pakistani funding of Al-Qaeda.
Secretary Powell, one country you didn't mention was Pakistan, and I understand that your deputy has spoken with the ambassador to Pakistan.
Deputy Secretary Armitage did meet with Pakistani officials today. It would be useful to point out to the Pakistani leadership at every level how helpful they might be if we find a basis to act upon that information.
By then, the Bush administration knew that despite years of Saudi reassurance, 15 of the 19 hijackers had been Saudi nationals. So in the terrible aftermath of September 11th, surely it was now time to track down those who provided money and support for 9/11 wherever they might be. Right? Wrong again, according to former CIA insider Robert Baer. When George W. Bush says, terrorists, those who harbor them, those who give support to them, are our enemies.
That's obviously not true, because everybody that financed September 11th is currently in Saudi Arabia and free. I mean, it was sort of like if bin Laden had said, well, you know, it's just a coincidence my guys happened to run into your towers. Are we just going to leave him alone?
Not all the money that financed the attacks came from Saudi Arabia, although the majority of it did. Not surprisingly, another source of the funding came from Pakistan. It was reported in the Times of India that a $100,000 wire transfer took place between Omar Sheikh, an ISI agent, and Muhammad Atta, ringleader of the 9/11 attacks. Omar Sheikh was ordered through the ISI to transfer the funds by the ISI chief, General Mahmoud Ahmed.
Suspected hijacker Muhammad Atta received wire transfers via Pakistan and then distributed the cash via money orders bought here in Florida. A senior law enforcement source tells CNN the man sending the money to Atta is believed to be Ahmed Umar Saeed Sheikh.
He reportedly is controlling certain aspects of the financial transactions of the Al-Qaeda network.
Once a standout student at the London School of Economics, the British-born son of Pakistani parents speaks 5 languages.
Ahmad Omar Saeed Sheikh, the ISI agent who wired the money to Muhammad Atta, had many aliases. The chief of the ISI who ordered the wire transfer to Muhammad Atta, General Mahmoud Ahmed, was actually visiting Washington the week of 9/11, arriving exactly 1 week before September 11th. The general met with Pentagon, White House, National Security Council, and CIA officials.
Are you aware of the reports at the time that ISI chief was in Washington on September 11 and on September 10th, $100,000 was wired from Pakistan to these groups here in this area? And why he was here, was meeting with you or anybody in the administration?
I have not seen that report, and he was certainly not meeting with me. Yes.
On the very morning of 9/11, General Mahmoud Ahmed, one of the financiers of the attacks, was at a breakfast meeting on Capitol Hill, hosted by Senator Bob Graham and Representative Porter Goss, the chairman of the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. Now remember, Senator Bob Graham and Representative Porter Goss, who were warned by Dr. David Graham about the very clear Saudi and Pakistani involvement, and these two men are hosting a meeting with one of the financiers of the attack, Pakistani ISI chief, on the morning of the attacks, watching them take place together. And it was these two men that would later head the congressional inquiry with Nancy Pelosi that gave the public the official story of 9/11, and conveniently left the information out about these foreign governments. Senator Bob Graham stated he was surprised to see foreign governments involved in the attacks.
But also, I was surprised at the evidence that there were foreign governments involved in facilitating the activities of at least some of the terrorists in the United States. I am stunned that we have not done a better job of pursuing that to determine if other terrorists received similar support.
Are you suggesting that you are convinced that there was a state sponsor behind 9/11?
I think there is very compelling evidence that at least some of the terrorists were assisted, not just in financing, although that was part of it, by a sovereign foreign government, and that we have been derelict in our duty to track that down, make the further case, or find evidence that would indicate that that is not true, and we can look for other reasons why the terrorists were able to function so effectively in the United States.
The 9/11 Commission maintained that no foreign governments were involved in the attacks. What is the Pakistani connection, and why doesn't the public know more about it? Why does Bob Graham act so surprised when he was warned? Now remember, Porter Goss was also warned by Dr. David Graham. Is it just a coincidence that these were the only two men that were warned and also happened to be conveniently sitting aboard the congressional inquiry that investigated 9/11 that gave the public the official story? They sat in command of the congressional inquiry with Nancy Pelosi.
It took us 9 months to do all of our work, have our hearings, interview our witnesses, write the report, and it took 6 months for the administration to agree to some level of declassification. The report is overclassified. That is a disservice to the American people.
As for Omar Saeed Sheikh, he was found to be Pakistani ISI, the CIA's counterpart in Pakistan.
Investing officer A.K. Jain says under questioning, Omar Sheikh admitted he was supported by the Pakistan government's intelligence service, the ISI.
He had told me that.
He admitted to you?
Oh, yes.
And after his release, it was very clear that he was provided protection and safe haven in Pakistan with the direct support, with the knowledge, and obviously with the connivance of the Pakistani intelligence.
How do I know the name Saeed?
Well, probably because he's one of the most infamous terrorists known to man. You may know him by another name, too, because he has about a half-dozen aliases. But his big claim to fame is his conviction for the kidnapping and murder of Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl in February of 2002.
Daniel Pearl was killed by an ISI agent?
By the very man the government claims assisted in the 9/11 attacks. Pearl was on his way to meet Saeed when he disappeared. Saeed, using one of his aliases, knew that Pearl was investigating ISI ties to Al-Qaeda in 9/11.
I thought Pearl was killed because he was Jewish.
But it's far more likely he was killed by a high-ranking ISI agent to make sure he didn't print in a major U.S. newspaper ISI's connections to Al-Qaeda. See, from its inception, Al-Qaeda has been trained, funded, armed, and supported by the Pakistani intelligence agency, the ISI. The ISI, by its own disclosure, is an arm of the American CIA.
What is the importance of covering up Pakistan's role? Perhaps one should look back at 1979. The Pakistani ISI is the CIA's counterpart in Pakistan and was the CIA cutout which created, communicated, and financed the Mujahideen during the U.S. covert war with the Soviets in Afghanistan.